I. Manco Cápac, founder of the Inca Empire, our patriarch. Oh. Manco Cápac, the first Inca, millennia have passed, but your name will endure in the dark side of the soul of your descendants for not coming to grips with their ancestors. So, I begin my epic pilgrimage to the great Inca civilization of the Andes that still is remembered, as the dust of our past settles in our present. Trekking back in time, at a distance I see the massive buildings of granite. As I arrive at the gates of the city of Cuzco, one of two sturdy warriors asks me, "Who are you? Are you traveling in the revolving of the times to find out what is not written? Do you thirst to learn who we were? We shall spread the news that a man from the future has come to meet with his past." The other guard says, "Man of the times, after years of wandering in other worlds, you have not forgotten your ancestors or denied who you are. You have felt pain waiting for this moment, and you wish to bring our lost empire to its predestined greatness. For that to happen, you must have an encounter with the Incas of royal lineage to learn from their mistakes and triumphs. It is early and too cold to go down to meet with our powerful lord, the Sapa Inca. People are coming with their llamas full of cargo. The guards ask them, "Where do you come from? Are you bringing tidings for the festivities?" Kunter Sol, Capac Rami is our main festivity. For months we have been preparing for this grand event. The carriers of goods, in a low voice, exclaim, "Yes. We are bringing presents to our father Inca so that the great festival will be enhanced with the fruits of our labor." As the golden rays of the morning rise, I slowly unwind from my almost frozen position. I ask the guards to point me the road to the city. Go to the Watane River, following its course you will see the dwelling of the father of our history. I walk down the indicated pathway, my body feels heavy in the thin atmosphere. I sit down to contemplate the ancient city below. In my state of imminent collapse, I recall when as a child I used to run up and down in the hilly streets unaware of the emptiness of the ages. Now, with the weight of my years, I somberly walk thinking of the past and the future. Oh! The sun is barely warm. People walking in short steps courteously greet me. I am eager to tell them the plight of their descendants. I keep walking at the sounds of the soft cascading of the stream, so pleasant in the still of the morning. Climbing up on the narrow winding streets, I arrive at the temple grounds. I notice a large structure under construction and a smaller one that is finished, probably the dwelling of Manco Cápac. The compound inspires a feeling of reverence. As I get closer to the grounds, the guards show in their faces a look of questioning. Who is this stranger coming unescorted? I sense an eerie feeling, I will encounter a long-gone mythical person. But he will become alive in my imagination, because it is inscribed in the innermost of my being. Guards, I come from the future looking for my ancestors. I feel like an orphan, and I long for my forebears. In silence, I have waited for this moment. I need to tell Manco Cápac what happened to his descendants. It is only 500 years that our civilization was truncated by the arrival of foreign invaders. It is time that we continue with our God-given right to attain our destiny with wisdom and justice, for the world will always need more of both. Scrutinizing me, they ask, "You look familiar, are you one of us? You seem to be humble in your ways, why are you here?" I am here to meet our patriarch, the one who united our ancient peoples. I have no possessions, I only bring a lifetime experience of my present. Man of the future, how long have you traveled? Your face is lined with the furrows of a long-lived life. Have you not had one moment of peace in the midst of plenty? What is it that are you coming to find in the past? Incas, nothing is known of the future. But learning of our past, we will get to know of our present. Why are you coming at such an old age? Because, in the despondency of our fading lives we look for answers to the why of our existence that can only be answered by recapturing our beginnings. You have come this far only to be disappointed, and what you will learn from us will be a source of pain for you. Nevertheless, when you meet with our Sapa Inca, be reverent to him. He is troubled with the intrigues of his nobles, and he will become more disheartened when you tell him the fate of our descendants. A faint smoke comes through the doorless house. Women's voices can be heard. A maid throws out some old corn brew, chicha, splattering on the noble's sandals. In unison they ask her, "How is our father?" She fixes her mantle with one hand while holding a clay jar with the other, answering with her disapproving looks, and too busy to reply. Finally, I hear the trembling voice of an old man. "Oh Mama Aklo! I owe so much to you for the tranquility that you have given me. Sapa Inca, sit down and have the sustenance of the day. Last night you were busy talking of the great festivities, and you were very optimistic. Sister and wife, why are my nobles restless? Has someone attracted their fancy, or are they planning something that I must distrust them for?" Mama Aklo lifts herself from the floor complaining of her aching bones and loudly calls out, "Huaman and Kyusi. Whom are you talking to? Manco Cápac is worried of your whispering." Mother of all, a man from the future has come to have an encounter with Manco Cápac, and learn from his wisdom. Pilko, calls Mama Aklo. Make sure that this stranger is not a threat to our Sapa Inca, but be gentle with him. He seems to be pained by something. Let us welcome him, if he comes in good will. I hear the sounds of a hoarse cough. We all listen attentively to the broken voice of Manco Cápac. Meanwhile, I am eagerly waiting to hear from him the origins of the Incas that with the passage of time has become a fable. But then, the distant past can only be told through legends, and as time unravels the myths, some truth evolves, exposing the essence of a civilization. Oh! It is too cold. Pass my tupayori. I will come out, and greet the sun. Making thumping sounds with his scepter, which he uses as a cane, he finally comes outside. No one makes eye contact with the Inca. Slowly, he turns with his outstretched arms, and in a grave voice invokes to the radiant sun. "Oh! Inti, give us another season of plenty. It is December, time to celebrate the Capac Rami." Half blinded from the glaring sun, I get my first glimpse of Manco Cápac: black hair, red eyes, few whiskers, prominent nose, receding chin, and salient cheekbones. The Inca greets the city of Cuzco with his right arm, and he walks back to his dwelling. "Mama Aklo, let my nobles and that stranger come in." Manco Cápac is sitting on his stool of solid gold. Pilko, the leader of the elite group, tells him of the events that happened, and the agenda for the day. The Inca moves his head approvingly. Finally, Manco Cápac addresses me in a patriarchal tone, "Stranger. What brought you here from such faraway times? Are you that man of the future who has something to tell us? You, who have traveled long distances, suffering days of hardship and nights of solitude, find yourself in the city that gave your first taste of milk. Now that our souls are together, tell me of your present, and I will tell you of our past." Impressed by his understanding of my wishes, I reverently bow my head. "Great Manco Cápac, it will cause me great pain to tell you of the events that happened after you departed to the unknown, and why it is imperative to hear of the forgotten past to make sense of what befell upon us. Maids, bring more chicha, that this encounter will take us into our legendary past. Kuntersol, my son, with the wisdom of my age and the forgetfulness that beseech us with the years, I will try to recount how we evolved. In your soul you have returned to the place where you were born, and left from our motherland when you were young. But deep in your heart, you have always been with your ancestors. Now you want to find out why the civilization that I began failed. We were no different than the rest of mankind. We also struggled between the forces of good and evil, choosing the latter with catastrophic results, and our descendants are paying for our historical misdeeds. Father Manco Cápac, now that we are closer in spirit, can you tell me of the origins of the Incas, even if myths were told to convey that message? From there is a book of wisdom written in the form of parables that is the consciousness of the Christian world. Soul, unfortunately we did not write. We carry our ancient history in our souls. Thus, as I immerse in the labyrinths of my mind, I vaguely recall that in primeval times this land was very dark, so dark that the light of the day had not yet been created. In those immemorial times a strange being came to our sunless world, the great Huayracocha-Pacha-Yachakik, creator of all. In the twilight of the times, he created some people who in the coldness of their hearts did him wrong. In his fury, he turned them into stones, and Huayracocha left this world in darkness. Inca, where did that happen? Most likely in the Titicaca Lake, our place of origin. Father Manco, as a child, I lived in the inhospitable Altiplanos, close to where Tiahuanaco is. There, I saw enormous granite statues of unusual-looking people, and remnants of what must have been colossal stone buildings. Could those ruins have been the works of that long-gone supreme being? Perhaps, we also found them as ancient as you do in your times. We must assume that what I am about to tell you began there to make some sense of who created us. Inca, what did Huayracocha look like? Did he come back after he left? I am afraid that our history has been lost with the passage of the times. I will narrate what my ancestors told me. Huayracocha-Pacha-Yachakik was a tall man with short hair, dressed with a long robe belted at his waist, and he carried a book-like object. Your description of him is very much like the Messiah, who redeemed the old world. Could he have come to the new world? Let me answer your questions, and do not add more enigmas to our mysterious past. Huayracocha-Pacha-Yachakik returned for the second time with his assistants, the Huayracochas, walking on the tranquil blue lake without being swallowed by the oceans of water. Then, they headed toward Tiahuanaco that in those days must have been a port city. When the creator of all arrived at the shore without a drop of water in his white tunic, he stood amid the barren solitude. Imploring to the unknown, he created the sun to give light and warmth to our desolate world. After setting the great start in its course to revolve forever, darkness came again on this unending land of wheezing winds. The robed one and his helpers, seeing the emptiness of the nights, created the moon. When the days were lighted with the sun and the nights filled with the stars, they started to make sculptures in stone, men, women, children, and their leaders to rule over them. When these works were completed, in a grave voice the Supreme Being told his Huayracochas what to do with each set of stone people. This group will be called so and so, come out of such and such a place, and settle to multiply. Lifting his right hand and pointing toward the east, he ordered one group to travel where the sun rises, to the other to go west where the sun sets. Great Inca, at one time, those ruins of Tiahuanaco must have been a large metropolis, and not the desertic place that it is now. The world cannot imagine how and by whom those structures were made. Some speculate that extraterrestrial beings built them. Even when the foreign invaders came to our shores they thought that giants lived in these lands, because they found large skeletons in whose skulls a sword could easily be lost. Then those strangers believed in our creation? No, Inca, they believed in another creator. Tell me what happened to the other Huayracochas? Oh, yes, there were 4 groups of helpers. Huayracocha-Pacha-Yachakik turned his back to the setting sun, outstretching his arms. He told one group to proceed north and the other south. Once the Huayracochas arrived at the places designated, they began to call, so and so, come out to people this land. Thus, his assistants traveled the 4 quarters of the future empire. Inca, what happened to the creator? Huayracocha-Pacha-Yachakik, traveling on the Cordilleras, set out to reach Cuzco. However, when he arrived at Canas, the people were coming to kill him. Huayracocha caused fire to spew from the heavens, burning a range of mountains, causing panic in the Canas. Seeing their submission, he hit the ground with his staff, extinguishing the fire. To the astonishment of all, he announced that he was their maker. In remembrance of that event, the Canis built a temple. After this episode, Wiracocha continued to the hamlet of Urcos, where he climbed a mountain with some difficulty. At the summit, he sat to rest, and ordered the effigies of stone to come out as human beings in the same way he had instructed his assistants. Years later, they built a bench of solid gold on which they placed a golden statue in Wiracocha's likeness. Great One, what happened to that golden idol? In our times, there are no remnants or memory of its existence. From your lack of knowledge, I assume that the statue is no longer there. If it was made of gold, the foreign invaders dug up the whole area looking for that treasure. Let me continue with Wiracocha, who by then had reached Old Cuzco, named in those days Acamama. Here, he called a group of people, and he named Alcavica to lead them. Once he had settled the ancient city, the robed one continued north on the coast, reaching Porto Viejo, where he met with his assistants. Having finished their work, they walked on water, as if on land, disappearing in the turbulent oceans, perhaps to return again. A great story, Father Manco, for one day, long after you were gone, big embarkations appeared from unknown oceans manned by unusual people, armed with powerful weapons, and ended with the empire. That is why I am traveling back in time, so that you know what happened to us. Nevertheless, this story you just told me was probably concerted by the chroniclers. Perhaps, what I have told you is the need that is in all of us to explain our beginnings. Who made Inti? Where do we come from? Thus, and after our creation, Mama Aklo and I emerged from the depths of Lake Titicaca with a golden bar to go and test the fertility of the land, and settle. Only the two of you emerged from the waters? No. We were more than two. We traveled north, on the high Andes, hoping to find that promised land. On our long trek, we were uniting and pacifying the nations who had been perpetually warring. After years of wandering, we arrived to the valley of Tampiatoco, where we made camp in the cave of Pacaratambo that had 3 openings. We gave each its own name. Capac Toko was the Great Window. Is this how the legend of the 4 brothers originated? Or did you procreate during your long journey? Let us just say that 4 brothers and 4 sisters began on our quest to find a fertile valley. We stayed in Pacaratambo, cultivating the fields and teaching the people. When the time came to move on, we went to the cave where we stored our attires and seeds. From the Great Window, Ire Manco with Mama Aklo, Ire Cash with Mama Huaco, Ire Uchu with Mama Kura, and Ire Aka with Ragua Aklo, came out richly dressed, and distinguished by our pierced ears that hang low from the weight of our golden ear plugs. When we needed to be credible to the people that we were the sons of the sun, we used other alternatives to be noticed. How so, great Inca? I placed on my chest a polished sheet of silver, and a diadem of gold on my head. When the people needed proof that I was divine, I asked them to come out when the sun was the brightest, and they could see me on the high hills radiating as brilliantly as Inti. It was not too difficult for them to believe, because they needed a unifying God, and a leader. Were there any struggles among you? After all, you were mortals and not divine. Oh, yes. My other brothers became worried of Ire Cash, because of his unusual strength. One day he hurled a heavy stone with his sling, and it shattered the mountains. Afraid of his powers, they conspired against him. When we set out to leave, he was told to go back to Pacaratambo and bring our flag. Once he entered the cave, an accomplice with the help of others pushed a huge boulder across the Great Window, sealing it forever. In desperation, Ire Cash shouted so loud that he turned into stone, becoming our idol, and the cave a shrine to which we have worshipped for protection ever since. Inca, did you plot this gruesome scheme? No. As the eldest, I tried to preserve peace among us. I hope you understand the predicament that I was in. Once again, your story seems to be another myth. Can you tell us what actually happened, and why? The fact is that since we had been wandering for so long, Ayar Cash was getting old. He decided to stay in the valley of Tamputoko, becoming the Curacao leader of the place. When he died, they built a temple that had 3 windows, and he was interred there to remind our descendants of our first coming. Since then, we started to build effigies and temples in memory of our gods and warriors. After his death, we, 3 brothers and 4 sisters, continued on our pilgrimage, arriving to the hill of Wanakor. Some years later, Ayar Uchu turned into a creature with wings, and he rose in flight toward the heavens. On his return, he was stoned by the people. As he was dying, he gave us a messages from Inti, saying that I, Ayar Manco, be renamed Manco Cápac and proceed to Akamama. What actually happened is that Ayar Uchu also stayed to solidify our possession of the valley. After his death, they made a statue of him in the form of a condor, and Wanakor became our most venerated place. Great Manco Cápac, were you usurping their wives? No, I want you to know that the empire was formed with the help of our women. Inca, our history hypothesizes that your mother may have been Mama Huaco, the sister and wife of Ayar Cash. All siblings? I understand your repugnance at such a possibility. In our days, as in yours, one of our fundamental prohibitions was incest. In our situation, it was tolerated to keep our lineage pure. Some chronicles state that Mama Huaco was the one who struck the golden bar, symbolizing the possession of Old Cuzco. That tells you that our origins were matriarchal. To underscore the strength and position of our women, I will relate a story of her, who at the gates of Guala, a small city to be taken before Cuzco, she killed one of their warriors. As he lay dead, she opened his chest with a knife. Then she removed his lungs, and she blew the bleeding organs with one breath, so that from its configuration she could predict our future. The people ran in horror after witnessing such a gruesome spectacle, leaving their best coca fields. This was one of the attributes of our women, and the word Huaco means courageous. We also had another archetype of our women in Mama Aklo, kind and feminine, winning the hearts of the people. From Guala we went to Matagua, where we planned the takeover of Old Cuzco. Once in Akamama, having heard of the ferocious fighting will of Mama Huaco and seeing me in splendid attire, their leader Alcavica said, Manco Cápac, choose any place you want, and settle with your people. We occupied the lower part of the city. Then the taking of Akamama signified the finding of the promised valley. Did everything go well afterwards? No, the original Cuzco had a long history of invasions. Initially the Waris, then the Ayarmancas, and now us, the Incas, who are in the early stages of our beginnings. Mama Aklo, we need more chicha to celebrate this occasion. It is good to recall our ancestors, they come alive when we talk about them. Manco Cápac, be prudent with your drinking. Kunter Soul comes from the future, he wants to know the facts and not the myths. So, man of the times, as we resolved our differences we lived in a state of distrust, but in the end we accomplished a union. You did, but under rigorous constraints of our God-given rights to our freedom. We had to start somehow in order to form a nation, in our case a civilization, and sometimes it doesn't matter if those rights are given by a supreme being. Inca, with the loss of that liberty and the arrival of foreign invaders, our differences were accentuated to the point that we despise our Indian heritage. A reason why I am here, hoping that we can learn from the experiences of the past, and someday be again united. Kunter Soul, I have told you the good and the bad of our beginnings. For centuries, I have been dormant in the dust of my bones, not knowing what happened to my descendants. I need to hear from you, so that we can ponder on the future of our people. Inca, you have elucidated some matters that are relevant to comprehend who we are. Thus, and unknown to you, there are other continents separated by great masses of water that cover most of the earth that is as round as when the sun sets. In those faraway lands they also thought that their world ended. Where the oceans seems to meet with the sky, and beyond that illusory line they imagined abysmal precipices harboring monsters. For thousands of years no one ventured past those feared horizons, certain that the earth was flat, until one day adventurers from the old world crossed that forbidden line, but not before a great event happened in their ancient lands. What event could that have been? Inca, although our universe is ageless, there is a need for us, humans, to have a beginning to orient ourselves toward our end. So, our present times began with the advent of a child, the Son of God, in that old world, and at which time the Inca Empire did not yet exist. But in the course of endless centuries of anonymity the Incas began their destiny, until men from those distant lands arrived in the New World and began decimating civilizations, in spite of the teachings of their Redeemer. I do not understand. What does a son from other gods have to do with our extinction? Inca, you should know that the dispersed groups of people that you unified, and the empire that they subsequently built, have all crumbled. To whom did we submit? Why? And how? As to whom? We may have succumbed to ourselves. As to why? Perhaps it began with the seeds that you had planted in the souls of your people. How it came pass? It happened after the latter Incas fought fratricidal wars, and we lost everything forever. I who planted the seeds of goodwill, now you are telling me that our decline resulted from our own misdeeds? Inca, we all are responsible for what happened, and still is happening to us. You thought that you were descendants of cosmic gods, but those people from the other side of the world believed in a humanoid god. Now, mankind is awaiting for his second coming to undo the injustices done by beings of his own creation, just as the Incas were also waiting for the return of the Huayracochas, except that they have already come as our conquerors. As it is, the god of the estrangers or of the Incas had nothing to do with our downfall. Throughout this encounter, you will know that your descendants are now the scourge of the world. Even our original denomination of Incas has been changed to that of Indians, a single word that carries in it the full meaning of a vanquished and decaying race, so much so that many of us hide our heritage from the rest of mankind. How I wish that this is the last time I utter the word Indian, for that label given to us by strangers has done more harm than any other evil act perpetrated on the peoples of the New World. If what I am writing reaches the conscience of our humanity, I hope that we erase from the face of the earth the word Indian, for we are Incas, and that is with a K, as it is pronounced in the Quechua language, and I will write it so from now on. Do you think that the minds and hearts of the people will change for this to happen? They have to put an end to that prejudice. The Indian peoples of all the Americas need to regain their dignity, just as many other races have regained theirs. However, that prejudice to us comes not only from other races, but from the Indians and mestizos themselves who are our own people. Man of the future, that happened among ourselves. Exactly my point, that this aberration emanate from us to the detriment of ourselves. A reason why you, the Incas, should rise from the depths of your graves to rectify the wrongs done to your own subjects, and we, from the inner of our beings, eradicate that disdain that we have for our own country soul. In your desire to do something for our descendants, you are asking us to do the impossible. How can we, the dead, undo centuries of humiliation committed by others? We don't even exist. Great Manco Cápac, our situation can be reversed. It is only 5 centuries since the Inca Empire vanished. History has shown that the destiny of subjugated nations has changed for the better, if their people have the foresight to do so. Do we have any precedents for that to happen? Yes, the Israelites, in the ancient deserts of the Old World, were once enslaved, dispersed, and recently almost decimated. However, united by a common bond and purpose, they were able to free themselves from the tyranny of those who wanted and wished to annihilate them. To this day they are continuously avenging and cleansing their past. Those are the people whom we must emulate, and become as resourceful as they are to survive with dignity. So, our half of a millennium of bondage is but a lip of the sun, and just as the night turns into day we must overcome our subjugation. But we have to start somewhere, for it will never happen, unless we take that first step. How are we going to begin with that difficult endeavor? First and foremost, we must restore our dignity. Second, recover our lands that have not been destroyed by progress. And third, get credit for our ancient knowledge that we have poured to humanity. Who are we going to ask, and who will listen to us? We have to appeal to the descendants of the old world to make reparations to us, no matter how long ago those events took place. Do you think that will happen, just for the asking? No, Inca. What we are requesting is done through a legal process in the New World Order, and it should happen, because it is righteous. You are talking of restoring one's dignity, recovering what we have lost, and get credit for our contributions? That would have never happened in the Inca Empire. Maybe in the last 500 years humanity has evolved. Man of the times, it remains to be seen if what you are asking will ever happen, let alone in your lifetime. Father Manco, let that be a thought if not our mission in this encounter. Kunter soul, you speak of pain and hope at the same time. I begin to feel remorse for what I hear. We should try to get to the root of our problems by exposing the past with us, the present through this encounter, and understand the reasons for our dismal prospects for the future. Yes, Inca. Our journey should be that of revealing and cleansing what was and is wrong with us, hoping that your descendants will be conscious of the past, restless toward the present, and confront the future for a better legacy. Man of the future, I hope someday what we are asking will become a reality. Great Manco Cápac, you who humbly and perhaps cunningly began what was to become an empire, we salute you for the foresight that you had to unite our ancient people. Before we close the history of your times, we want to hear your message to us. Kunter soul, by the weight of your sorrows, I foresee the futility of our destiny. Nevertheless, from the nothingness of my being, I say unto you. One day, in the solitude of the Andes, I felt that we needed to be in balance with the universe. I implored to the unknown, as who the Creator was. In the uncertainty of my being, I thought of the sun as the only source of our existence. With its guidance, I pursued the betterment of our people, with the only weapon known to the benevolent, the desire to do good for others, for as there is day and night, there is also good and evil. Forces that are in a continuous clash, emanating from those titanic battles, great sparks of light, illuminating our minds to follow on the right path. For we all have the power to do evil and good, and why in the old world, with their ancient knowledge, they thought of the perfect symbol of renewal of our decaying souls, the birth of a child, for only with the rebirth of our humanity, we can hope to overcome our inhumanity. Thus, as the patriarch of what we are, I exhort to all of those who have one drop of my blood. Never be ashamed of our heritage. For there is no disgrace to be an Inca descendant, but it is, if you deny your ancestry. Meditate on who we were, for there lies the essence of who you are. Therefore, I urge the Indians and mestizos, do not fancy someone else's legacy or wish false faces, for you are what we were, and only you will overcome the dungeons of your desperations. Thus, as I am to bid you farewell, pass this message to my descendants that I, Manco Cápac, will always be with them as I have been with you, because you accept your ancestry. Tell our people that we have a destiny to fulfill, for the sun also shines on us, as on others. Great Father of our times, I am grateful for your enlightenment. As I encounter the other Incas, I hope your soul will be with us. For we need your wisdom to help us understand what is to become of us. With the coming of a new day, I sense that Inti is coming to claim Manco Cápac. Man of the future, you who brought my soul to life, I now must witness my demise. I requested that all my children and nobles come to my deathbed. As they somberly arrived, I reminisced not of the accomplishments in my life but the birth of Sinchi Roca, my firstborn. Although I could imagine him becoming a great warrior, what I marveled most in him was his innocence. When I looked at my wife and sister, I could see through her moments of triumph and anguish. She never doubted what I wanted to do for our people. If they did not believe me, they certainly believed in her. All these thoughts came to me, as a pleasant dream. Once all together, they called me benefactor of the poor. Nothing pleased me more, for that is how I wanted to be remembered, and I spoke to them. Oh, my children and nobles, as I am to go to the faraway sun, do not cry for me, but for the events to come. For there is so much to do, before we can all be united. I beg all of you to keep harmony among yourselves. If you do not respect each other, nothing will ever be accomplished, and the reason for our downfall. Go and conquer where the sun rises and sets. But before you start a war, entice them with gifts, wisdom, and our religion. If the enemy comes to you in goodwill, be always generous in triumph, for there is no greater feat than to restore the vanquished their dignity. Lastly, never be idle, take care of the young, elderly and needy, for an empire of beggars is just that, a beggar's empire. Sinchi Roca, my son and heir, be a magnanimous leader. Respect the able and do not block their dreams, for reasons of your own. Whatever you do, do it with the best of intentions. Whatever you utter, say it in virtue. If you do not, your subjects will not accept you, for our people's ways are intolerance to others' errors, but their own, unforgiving to the humiliated, uncompromising for the good of all. To my subjects, I say to you, be faithful to Sinchi Roca, as you have been to me, and never obstruct his path designed by Inti. Remember that the one who governs, governs because he is the most able, and the road to leadership is not an easy one. As I kept talking, my eyes became clouded as the old chicha, my hearing deaf as the mute stones, my feelings frozen as the frigid Andes. Then, I saw no more, heard no more, and felt no more. Yes, Great One, you left this world. But fear not for your immortality, that your place, as the father of the Incas, will be as is written. Thus, and while Manco Cápac was trying to put order in the southern hemisphere of the New World, some emperors in the Old World were destroying powerful kingdoms, and in time they came to pillage in our continent. If the descendants of barbarous Attilas had not shattered what the Incas forged, who knows? We could have had a different past.